Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this session. My name is Reem Ali. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the City of Peterborough's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Today, I'll offer you some tips on how to embed a diversity, equity, and inclusion, or a DEI lens, to your business practices. So let's get started with some definitions to help inform our work. And we'll start with the most obvious ones, the definitions for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is the presence of difference within a given setting. Differences can arise in our appearances, our thoughts, likes and dislikes, our values, and our identities. Diversity among identities may relate to gender, race, ethnicity, religion, nationality, education, marital status, sexual orientation, ability, and socioeconomic status, to name a few. Now, while equality means sameness, equity means fair treatment, fair access, fair opportunity, and fair advancement for all people. Equity is an approach that ensures everyone is supported in their personal and professional development. Unlike equality, equity does not aim to treat all individuals in the exact same way. Instead, equity recognizes that advantages and barriers exist, and that as a result, different people have different needs. And inclusion is the act of creating environments in which people feel like they can bring their authentic selves to work. It means everyone feels valued, respected, and appreciated for their unique identities, even when they're different from others. Inclusion outcomes are met when you, your institution, your policies and programs are truly inviting to all. And it extends to the degree in which diverse individuals are able to participate in decision-making processes and development opportunities. The biggest takeaway from these definitions is that inclusion is not a natural consequence of diversity. In order to achieve your goals of inclusion, you must first set them and then do the work to make it happen. I wanted to share a diagram that's made up of 3 inserts, and which many of you have likely seen in the past. In all of them, we see 3 diverse individuals presenting different needs, and therefore require different solutions to accommodate these needs. The first insert shows us what happens when we approach these needs through a process that starts with equality, but does not achieve it. In the second insert, we see what happens when instead an equitable approach is used for accommodating these individuals' needs, an equitable approach that successfully achieves equality. It is because everyone's specific needs were assessed using an equitable lens in the second insert that they are now all in an equal position to watch the game. As for the third insert, we see the fence or the barrier that was excluding some being removed altogether. And this helps us achieve our greater goal of inclusion, where no matter what the individual needs are, everyone can enjoy the game. However, as I said, inclusion is not easy to achieve because it requires more effort and a willingness to rethink our existing systems and approaches. It also requires that we acknowledge and reflect on our biases. You may already know what unconscious bias is and understand the different ways in which it can affect our decision-making processes at all levels. But I think it's always good to bring up this definition to refresh our memories. Unconscious biases, or implicit biases, are attitudes that are held subconsciously and affect the way individuals feel and think about others around them. Subconscious attitudes aren't necessarily as well informed as coherent thoughts, but they can still be very ingrained. Many people have unconscious biases that have been with them since childhood, which they absorb by observing their social, familial, and institutional environments. Unconscious biases can color the emotional and rational responses of individuals in every situation and affect their behavior. We all hold biases. The problem arises when we act on our biases and hold power over others and control the opportunities available to them, or in the case of small businesses, when these biases limit our possibilities. To reach our DEI goals, we must change, or at least be willing to change, as individuals and as a community, even if this means stepping outside of our comfort zone or revisiting what we see as long-standing customs and traditions. At the bottom of the slide, you will find the title of an article that you can look up that lists and provides examples of 16 unconscious biases and the way in which they can be detrimental to establishing inclusive work environments. I like using a picture of an iceberg to depict how our unconscious biases are hidden, where they come from, and how they inform who we are and what we do. Our everyday decisions form the visible tip of an iceberg that is supported by our hidden worldview. The tip of the iceberg represents what people see, our actions and our behaviors, essentially our doings. But as we dive deeper, we discover what lies beneath, our values, our beliefs, assumptions, and worldviews, some of which are conscious, others unconscious, but all are informed by foundational stories, narratives, and scriptures. And this forms our being. What we do is affected by who we are. Our doings will only change if we transform our being. And that in turn can only happen if we begin to question who we are and the values and beliefs that inform that, and then willingly start to change it. If we do this repetitively, if we embed this in our regular practices, then we will end up with a continuous cyclical process of self-discovery and rediscovery. And this process can help us identify, acknowledge, and perhaps even eliminate our biases. So now with these definitions in place, let's see how we can begin to imagine what our DEI work can look like. And for this, we'll use the dance party analogy to help us. Think of your DEI plan or strategy as if you're trying to organize a dance party. Diversity is the invitation to the party. So when you think of putting this invitation together, you might ask yourself, who are you inviting? And who are you excluding, and why? How is this invitation being shared? What is the language used in the invitation? Is the invitation clear about the expectations of the guests? Once at the party, then as a host, you must put your energy into ensuring that everyone is given the opportunity to dance. And that's the equity piece. So what does the dance space look like? Is it accessible? What barriers might some of your guests face when attempting to dance? Will everyone be expected to arrive knowing how to dance? Will there be an opportunity for folks to learn from others and feel free to express themselves using their own dance moves? And this is when you might ask, what about the music? And so inclusion means that everyone gets to contribute to the playlist. Think of what would stop people from doing that. Are you inviting them to feel safe enough to express themselves and their choice of music? Are you willing to listen to anything that anyone might suggest playing? Is the playlist representative of everyone at the party? Are you allowing yourself and others the opportunity to listen to what others want to share in a way that is meaningful and engaging? These are only some of the questions that you might ask as you explore your own understanding of DEI. Now let's try to add a business context to this. When discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion take place, the focus is usually on large national employers. But when it comes to putting inclusivity into practice, no business is too small to work on DEI initiatives. Progress is progress, no matter the size of the business. So no matter your employee size, the real goal of DEI initiatives is to do better than you did in the past. Smaller organizations don't have to invest millions in DEI initiatives, but every business can determine their starting point by examining their current situation and setting goals for the near and long term. Building a business on the foundation of DEI or applying a DEI lens to your existing businesses demonstrates your commitment to better serve your customers and community. And customers, in turn, want to support businesses that are socially and environmentally conscious, ones that care about social justice. This commitment to DEI can come in the form of engaging with customers from diverse backgrounds and experiences, or innovating and providing products and services that appeal to a wider customer base, or hiring from a more diverse and inclusive talent pool, or creating environments that allow your employees and customers to feel welcomed and valued. Even wider representation in your messaging can be immensely rewarding. Business owners who operate solo are at a strong advantage when it comes to implementing DEI, because one place to start is by developing themselves in this area and instituting DEI at all levels of the business without needing additional authorization. In fact, solopreneurs have the advantage of making big, meaningful changes from one day to the next. They can reap the benefits just as quickly as they're willing to implement changes. But it is important to note that DEI is more of a strategy and a way of doing business than a one-off workshop. And while many large corporations have started doing DEI work and making changes to promote a more progressive workplace, small businesses and solopreneurs have a hard time knowing where to start. If you don't have the funds to hire underrepresented groups or make large financial contributions, what can you do? Where and how do you start? So I'm offering you 3 starting points. The first is to look at your current business with a DEI lens to help you get focused on what you need to do. Small businesses are just as responsible for building a more diverse and equitable business community. Looking at your current business with a DEI lens means identifying what diversity and what equity and what inclusion looks like in all facets of your business, and then exploring the opportunities for making meaningful changes. And these changes don't need to happen all at once, which brings us to the second starting point. Evaluate where you are, set realistic goals, measure your progress, and repeat as needed. While the strategies and tactics that small businesses use to improve diversity may differ slightly from how large organizations approach the same challenges, the basic principles are the same. You evaluate where you are, you set realistic goals, measure the progress towards achieving those goals, and then repeat the process as needed. And finally, start by investing in yourself, and now is always a good time. If you are a small business with employees, effective DEI practices start at the top, with business leaders looking within themselves as well as at each facet of their business structure to identify and address biases, reshape your business plan accordingly, and implement meaningful practices. If you are a solopreneur, your investment in a DEI strategy begins with yourself. These 3 starting points are all embedded within what I refer to as a prioritization approach to DEI work. DEI needs to be a priority for businesses in order for the business to benefit from better serving their customers and communities. Any business attempting to implement DEI practices will first need to set its DEI goals and outline its desired outcomes. Oftentimes, we see businesses attempt DEI work without clearly identifying their intentions behind it, and leading without purpose can result in superficial outcomes that are not sustainable. This is why I've embedded your starting points in a prioritization approach. If DEI is not a priority, if it is not embedded in the evolution of your business plan, if it is not budgeted for, and if it is not part of your business's foundation and purpose, then it will always be an afterthought. And this means that you will always be leading that work from a scarcity approach, a scarcity of time and money and resources. As a result, not having a prioritization approach to DEI work will deter you from achieving your DEI goals. Defining your goals and outcomes here can, again, be a cyclical process, as mentioned in the previous slide. You can develop a set of DEI goals that you would monitor and evaluate on a regular basis, and set a number of outcomes to achieve and hold yourself accountable to. With every cycle, you reevaluate where you are and push yourself to grow further. A simple ask is just looking through the diversity lens at your current business to help you get focused on what you need to do. Once you get started, and once DEI is a priority, then here are some more concrete actions that you can take place. Invest in your own development and focus on yourself as a leader. In order to do DEI work, it is crucial to become as informed as possible. You can do this by reading, researching, and learning on your own, and challenging yourself by diving into the relevance of DEI for your business and for your specific sector or industry. You can also hire a DEI consultant if your budget allows, or conduct surveys with your customers and clients about how they believe you're promoting inclusive values. Survey results and testimonials can be gold mines for ways to improve on DEI, specifically as desired by those who have already supported your business and may want to keep doing so. Second is to assess your communication materials to ensure that your deliverables are diverse and inclusive. One of the first and fastest areas to assess are your website, your social media, and other communication materials to determine if they're accessible and whether the language and images used are inclusive. While you might be attempting to target a particular segment of the market, you also don't want to risk using language and images that are being too focused in a way that isolates certain people from feeling like they might be a good fit for what you offer. Third, ensure your quick wins are still meaningful. Jumping onto trends can be very rewarding, but when it comes to DEI-related trends or movements, make sure that you incorporate inclusivity from beginning to end. This means conducting adequate background research and developing commitments to further the goals of those movements. With this investment, you will be gaining the trust of your partners and customers and ensuring that your wins are not only meaningful, but will have long-lasting effects on your business. Fourth, build social value and create DEI-focused opportunities. This can happen through developing new products, initiatives, or partnerships using a DEI lens, or by connecting with those who are leading with a DEI purpose. Social value is defined as the value attributed to economic, social, cultural, and environmental outcomes that tangibly contribute to the well-being, resilience, and sustainability of society and the wider environment. In procurement, social value is about making sure that what we buy is creating benefits for people, stakeholders, and society as a whole. It is about improving our capacity while advancing reconciliation, diversity, equity, inclusion, and well-being. Social value can be embedded in all your processes, from hiring and recruitment to who's involved in your supply chain, to diversifying your customer base and networks. Doing any or all of these will not only benefit your business, but will also contribute to a greater sense of belonging for many more folks in your community. And lastly, expand and diversify your networks. If your network mostly looks like you might want to reassess your professional circles to see what you might be missing. Connect with professionals who come from different backgrounds and communities, as well as organizations that support equity-deserving groups. Your list of contacts and referrals and the variety of perspectives on your work will help you evolve and improve your services for a wider variety of people. One of the disadvantages that solopreneurs have is that there are no employees they can rely on to catch blind spots or highlight areas for improvement. Because of this, it is crucial to turn to your professional relationships for guidance, and DEI principles are highly relevant when building and maintaining those relationships. So let's end by going back and applying the party analogy to our DEI practices. When we look at diversity or the party invitation, we will need to look at where and how we're marketing and advertising our business and our products, whether or not we're using inclusive language and images in our messaging, how unconscious bias is kept in check when evaluating our business practices, and how to avoid falling into the toxic isms, such as racism, sexism, ageism, and ableism, just to name a few. When we look at equity or the dance floor, we will want to identify the diverse needs of our employees, as well as our customers and clients. We must reduce any barriers that they might be facing in accessing or engaging with our products and services. And we must also create learning opportunities for ourselves and our staff. And when we look at inclusion or the party playlist, then we are looking at ways in which we can make everyone in our business space feel seen, heard, and valued. We must ensure that our practices are inclusive and our spaces are free of judgments and biases. And we must try to work from a place of open will. We often hear the terms open heart and open mind, but in order for transformational change to take place, it is really the open will that invites newness, innovation, and creativity. And as business owners, I think this is something that you're probably all familiar with. I wish you all the best, no matter where you are on your DEI journey. Know that this process does not need to be overwhelming. Just pick a starting point, set 1 or 2 doable goals, and find opportunities to grow your learning and your networks. Thank you.